My son. It's amazing how two small words can carry a whole life inside them. My son, Ethan, was once the boy who couldn't sleep on Christmas Eve, who tiptoed down the hall and whispered, "Is it morning yet?" before the sun even thought about rising. He was the boy who fell asleep in a nest of wrapping paper and ribbon, cheeks sticky with hot cocoa, the tree lights blinking slowly over his dreams. Years pass, the noise fades, the house quiets, but the word son keeps all of it alive. When he was little, our holidays were loud and warm. I baked until the kitchen steamed up the windows. My husband hung the outside lights while whistling. Off-key, Ethan lined up his toy cars under the tree so they could watch the magic happen. We didn't have much money, but we had enough laughter to make the walls feel close and safe. Then life changed the way life always does. My husband got sick and left us too soon. The house learned the sound of a single spoon in a single cup. I learned to make do with my own voice in rooms that used to hold 3. Ethan grew up. He moved to another city, the way children must if they are going to be their own people. We taught each other how to love with miles in the middle. We got good at it. Calls on Sundays, visits when he could, holidays that sometimes landed on the wrong, dates because schedules and budgets don't ask permission. A few times he promised and plans fell apart, and I told myself not to make those days bigger than they were. Next time, I would say, and I meant it. This year he called early in December. The moment I heard his voice, something in me went, soft and sharp at once. "Mom, I'm coming home for Christmas," he said. I booked it. December 24th. Arrival at 6:10. "I'll send the flight number." "Are you sure?" I asked, trying to wrap a joke around my worry. "No last-minute emergency?" "No, my boss needs me to stay." "I am prepared too. Argue with any boss you bring me." He laughed, that warm sound he's had since he was 5. "I'm sure. I miss you. I miss everything." I wrote the flight number on a sticky note and pressed it to the fridge with a snowman magnet. Then I did what mothers do when joy finally says yes. I worked. I polished the guest room furniture, even the backs you can't see. I washed the good sheets and tucked the corners tight the way he likes. I put an extra blanket at the foot of the bed because no matter how old he gets, I still think about his feet being cold. I set his old blue mug by the coffee maker. It has a chip on the handle and he always chooses it. I told the empty room, "He's coming." Just to hear it out loud, I made lists. Lists calm my nerves. Grocery list for Christmas Eve dinner. Roast chicken with rosemary, mashed potatoes, peas with lemon, warm rolls, and gingerbread cookies dusted in powdered sugar so they look kissed by snow. Cleaning list. Errands list. A list labeled small nice things that only had 2 items. Cinnamon sticks for the tea and fresh oranges for the table because the color looks like little suns. I also bought him a present he didn't ask for. A red wool scarf, soft and thick. Years ago he lost his favorite scarf on a bus. He never complained, but that day he turned the collar of his coat up high like a boy pretending not to be cold. I have never forgotten. I wrapped the new scarf in tissue with a paper star, and I put it in my purse so I could hand it to him at the airport the second he stepped through the doors. On the morning of the 24th, the winter light was clear and bright, the kind that turns the sky pale blue and makes the sidewalks look tidier than they are. I took the bus to the airport because night driving makes my eyes tired, and I wanted my hands free for waving. In my purse, the scarf, a tin of gingerbread cookies, a small thermos of tea, tissues, and hand lotion because I don't like greeting my son with dry hands. The airport looked like a postcard. A giant tree shimmered near the center of the hall. Paper snowflakes spun slowly in the warm air from the vents. A volunteer choir in red scarves sang carols near the escalators, and their blended voices made the big space feel smaller. People hurried and waited and hugged. That is the special airport weather wind made of hurry and hope. Found a spot under the glowing arrivals board where I could see both the doors and the screens. I checked his flight. On time, arrival 6:10. The numbers sat there steady and kind. I breathed easier. A woman about my age stood nearby holding carnations and a carry-on bag with a crooked zipper. We smiled at each other the way people do when they are waiting on the same kind of miracle. "You waiting for your boy too?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and the word made my chest warm. "Christmas homecoming. Mine's been away 2 years," she said. "Army." I told him I'd wear this ridiculous hat so he can spot me. The hat had a tiny battery pack that made a star blink. It was ridiculous and perfect. We talked about little things, weather, packing, where to get decent coffee without paying in gold. We did not say the big thing. Please let them come through those doors. Please let the first face they see be ours. At 5:45, my phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Boarding now. See you soon, Mom." I texted back a picture of the cookie tin and a red heart. I tucked my own scarf tighter around my neck, though I wasn't cold. The choir switched to "O Come, All the Faithful," and children in puffy coats turned the polished floor into a skating rink with their socks. The screen still said "On time." Then 6:10 came and went. The board flipped to "Delayed, 6:45. I told myself it meant nothing. Planes are buses with wings. They pause and shuffle and wait their turn. I sipped my tea and watched a little boy press his nose to the glass, leaving a fog circle shaped like Wonder Dot. At 6:44, the board changed again. Arrived. The sliding doors opened and the first wave of passengers appeared. I pushed up onto my toes, even though it only gave me the feeling of being taller, not the height. People poured out, towing the sound of wheels and relief behind them. A man in a suit clutched a paper crown from a Christmas cracker. A young couple carried a cat carrier draped with a blanket. An older gentleman walked slowly with a cane and a smile wide enough to make his eyes water. The woman with the carnations shouted, "Michael!" A tall kid in uniform, hair buzzed tight, came out of the crowd, and the carnations got crushed between them. I swallowed a small cry and wiped my eyes with the back of my glove. The stream of passengers thinned. The doors opened less often. The choir's last song faded and a recording took over. Custodians wheeled grey bins past me and made the floors shine again. A man in a red vest parked a neat line of wheelchairs near the wall. My phone buzzed. "Lines are long. Be out soon," Ethan wrote. "Okay," I typed. "I'm by the big tree. Take your time." 5 more minutes. 10. Then 15. The board showed 3 new flights as arrived, and the doors kept offering strangers into someone else's joy, not mine. I kept my smile in place the way you keep a candle steady in a draft. Practical thoughts started lining up. I checked the airline app. It showed his flight had landed and everyone had deplaned. I called him. It rang 3 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Everything okay?" and stared at the little space where 3 dots would appear if he were typing. They did not. A man in a red vest came by with a cart. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound cheerful and failing. "The flight from Chicago, if someone needed help, you'd know, right?" He glanced at his tablet. "Yes, ma'am. That flight is clear. If there had been a wheelchair request or medical assistance, I'd have a note. I don't." "Thank you," I said. He smiled a 1-second smile and kept moving. Everyone at an airport is headed somewhere. even the people who work there. I walked down to baggage claim, cookie tin under my arm. The carousel for his flight spun and spat out suitcases with bright ribbons tied to their handles. I stood with the other waiters and searched every face that came close enough to be his. The belt stopped. A lone suitcase circled once more then, thumped against the end and waited like it was tired too. I sat on a low bench where I could see the automatic doors. They opened and closed for other stories. I looked up at the big clock and felt the minutes land on my shoulders. My phone buzzed again. A new text. "Mom, don't be mad. I can't make it out. Something came up. I'll explain later. Go home. Please." I read it twice. Then I read it slowly, the way you sound out a word you used to know. The airport lights were suddenly too bright. The music too cheerful. My hands went cold. I set the cookie tin on my lap and pressed my palm to the lid because it was solid and heavy, and nothing else in me was. I didn't answer right away. I didn't call. I just sat and listened to the floor machine hum and the doors sigh and a baby cry somewhere off to the left. When I finally typed, I wrote, "Where are you right now?" Then, "Are you safe?" The messages showed as delivered. No little dots. No reply. I didn't go home. Not yet. I sat until the cleaning crew circled back and the choir packed up their folders. I watched the automatic doors obey no one and everyone. Somewhere sensible in me said this. The night will tell you what it is tomorrow. But I am a mother. Mothers do not walk away from unanswered questions so easily. Airports are built for happy endings. That's what I kept telling myself as the clock in the arrivals hall crawled past. 6:10, then 6:20, then 6:35. The board flashed neat little words. On time. Arrived as if words alone could carry a person through the sliding doors and into their mother's arms. Stayed under the giant tree, because from there, I could watch both the doors and the faces. I like faces. They tell the truth when words won't. There was a man with a faded baseball cap who kept smoothing his shirt as if he'd wrinkled it on the drive. There was a young woman chewing her lip and counting to 10 on her fingers over. And over. And the woman with the blinking star hat, she had already found her boy. They had disappeared into a cloud of laughter and carnations, leaving the air around me feeling a little emptier than before. My phone buzzed. Lines are long. Be out soon. I pictured Ethan in that slow river of travelers. Phone in one hand, carry on. In the other, head tilted the way he tilts it when he's thinking of two things at once. I answered, "Okay. I'm by the big tree. Take your time." I set the cookie tin on the low wall around the tree and flexed my fingers because they had gone stiff from holding. The choir finished their set and packed up their red folders, still humming. As they went, the recorded music that replaced them sounded brighter, emptier. A custodian in a green vest worked the floor machine in tidy ovals. The holiday lights kept twinkling, as if nothing in the world could be wrong. When there is twinkle dot at 6:44, the board flipped to arrived, and the doors started offering people like gifts. Out they came. The student dragging a suitcase with a broken wheel, the mother with a sleeping toddler folded over her shoulder, the businessman whose hug with his husband made me blink back tears. The stream thinned, then thickened again as another flight arrived. Not mine. Not yet. A small worry started. Its slow walk around my chest. I checked the airline app. It said what the board said. Landed. Gate opened, deplaned. In the movies, this is the part where the camera finds your loved one, and the music swells. In real life, you stand still and try not to let your face go pale, because pale makes strangers worry about you. I called him. Once. Twice. Voicemail. I put the phone to my ear again just to hear the recording that. Practical stranger's voice telling me to leave a message as if we were making plans for lunch. I didn't leave one. My voice felt like it might break at the edges, and I didn't want my break to be the thing waiting for him when he pressed play. I walked to the airline counter. The woman there had a smile fastened on like a name tag. "Kind but tired, ma'am?" she said. "I'm looking for my son," I said, aware of how small that sentence sounded in such a big place. "He was on the Chicago flight. He texted me. He's here, and then he said he can't make it, and now he won't answer." She glanced at her screen, then at me. "I'm afraid I can't share specific passenger information." "I understand," I said, "because I do understand rules, even when they make the world colder. If someone needed help getting off the plane, if there was a medical issue, you would know." "Yes," she said. She dropped her voice a little, the way decent people do when they have nothing to give you except the truth. "There are no notes like that on your son's flight." "Thank you," I said, and meant it. It isn't her job to fix the part of my life that hurts. Went to baggage claim because that's where people end up when they don't know where else to stand. I took a place near Carousel 4 and let the belt carry other people's stories. Past me, each suitcase was a life in a box, wheels rattling, handles crooked, ribbons tied for luck. I watched for Ethan's old black roller, the one with the scratch from the time he tried to cut through the revolving door too fast. It never came. The carousel stopped. The belt went still. I could see my own face, small and tired in the chrome. I picked up the cookie tin and sat on a low bench. My phone buzzed again. "Mum, don't be mad. I can't make it out." Something came up. "I'll explain later. Go home. Please, go home." The two words felt like a door locked from the inside. I read the message once, then again, slowly, like it was a word in a language I used to speak better. What could have come up between the gate and the arrivals hall? A ghost? A second life? An emergency that didn't let a person send two more words? "I'm safe?" I typed. "Where are you right now?" Then, a moment later, "Are you safe?" The screen stayed blank. No dots, no reply. The music changed to a cheerful jazz version of a carol that I used to love. It scraped the inside of my chest like a spoon. I didn't leave. Not right away. I jogged practical steps around the problem, because that is how I am built. I walked back to the doors. I checked the restrooms. I looked near the rental car's desk and the rideshare pickup sign. I peered into every corner where a person might stand if they were stuck between going forward and turning back. I held the cookie tin like a badge that proved I belonged in all those places. See? I am a mother. I have cookies. I am allowed to search. It was after 7 when I finally stepped out into the cold. Breath steamed the air. The bus stopped across. The road looked like a thin island in a wide sea. I could have taken a taxi. I could have called a neighbor. But the bus felt right, bright lights, other people's noise. Time to think. On the bus, a little girl in a purple coat told her grandmother a story at full volume about a snowman that fell over and lost his head, and it was so funny, Nana. You don't even know. A couple in matching sweaters shared a set of earbuds and swayed to something only they could hear. A man in a suit slept with his cheek against the glass, and I hoped his stop had a friend at it. My phone buzzed as we pulled into downtown. New message. "Mom, I'm sorry. I messed up. I wasn't on that flight. Please don't be mad. I'll call tomorrow. Not on the flight." The words rearranged the last 2 hours with a single swipe. The text about boarding. The lines are long. He had been lying to me from somewhere that was not an airport. I looked down at the tin and the thermos like they might confirm it. "Where are you?" "Right now," I wrote. No reply. I got off the bus and walked through the station's small crowd. Kids with backpacks, the man selling newspapers, the woman in a red coat, arguing with her reflection in the window. I didn't think about being tired. I thought about being a mother. We aren't magicians. We can't pull answers from air. But we can keep moving until we find a door that opens. At home, I turned on every light because the dark felt crowded. I put the scarf on the table and smoothed the paper star over its knot. I poured tea I didn't want and took one cookie and then another. Even though sweetness only made the hurt feel wider. At a few minutes past 3, too late for small talk. Too early for sense, I called Ben, Ethan's best friend from high school. He answered fast, like some part of him sleeps with one eye open. Miss Reyes? Is everything okay? I'm sorry to call so late, I said. Have you heard from Ethan tonight? Ben hesitated. I could hear the thinking. Not tonight, he said slowly. He's okay? He told me he was on a flight, I said, and the next words felt like lifting furniture. But he wasn't. Another pause. Then Ben's voice softened into something careful. Ms. Reyes, I thought he'd tell you. He lost his job in September. Company cutbacks. It hit him hard. He tried to get something else, but it's been a lot. His girlfriend left. Rent went up. He didn't want to worry you. Where is he? I asked, the question I had been circling since sunset. He said he was staying in his car for a bit. Just a bit, he said. Near the old apartment. The grocery store lot. He told me not to tell you, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You did the right thing telling me, I said. I could picture Ben's thin face from school plays and soccer photos and the time he helped. Ethan moved couches that were too big through. A doorway that was too small. He has always tried to be good. After we hung up, I stood at the kitchen window and looked at my reflection. It looked like an older woman who should be sleeping. I wrote a note to myself. Lock back door. Stove off. Because worry makes me forget the small things. Then I packed a bag, the scarf, the cookie tin, a blanket, a thermos of coffee as strong as I could bear, a charger, a small flashlight. I slid my feet into boots, wrapped my own scarf twice, and stepped out into the cold. The town looked different. At 3:30 a.m., the traffic lights blinked yellow at empty corners. Snow that never quite fell turned to frost on lawns. I drove slowly because the world felt thin, like paper you can tear if you rush. I left the radio off at first. Then, when the quiet felt too loud, I turned it on very low. An old song about a silent night filled the car like a remembered prayer. The grocery store lot sat behind the building like a dark lake. There were cars gathered along the far edge where the lights don't quite reach. I drove the perimeter as if I were reading the lines of a book, searching for a familiar word. On the second loop, I noticed a blue sedan with a bumper sticker half peeled off. Frost dusted the windshield. A blanket hung over one back window like a curtain. I parked 2 spaces away, angled so my headlights wouldn't flood his car. My hands shook a little as I unscrewed the thermos and poured coffee into the cap. I told myself not to think of every Christmas before. I told myself to think only of this one, this moment, this breath. I knocked on the glass gentle, the way you knock on a door you already own but haven't used in a while. At first nothing. Then a shadow moved. A hand wiped a small circle clear. Behind the fogged glass I saw his face older than it should be, younger than his fear. He blinked as if the shape on the other side of the window might be a trick of sleep. He rolled the window down an inch. The cold rushed in and bit my cheeks. Mom, he said, and the sound of that one word from that mouth, after everything, made something in me break and mend in the same breath. Sweetheart, I said, because none of the other words were ready. I brought coffee. He opened the door. All the way. The knight stepped aside to make room for us. He covered his face with both hands, elbows on the steering wheel. His shoulders shook once. "I'm sorry," he said into his palms. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said. "Let's get you warm." My son sat there in the driver's seat, the cold sneaking in around us, his breath turning to little clouds in the air. The car smelled like old coffee and winter coats. I could see a crumpled blanket on the back seat, a backpack, a pair of shoes that weren't quite dry. The life he hadn't wanted me to see was all around us, simple and loud. "Drink," I said, and pressed the cup into his hands. He took it and blew on it, eyes closed. His fingers shook so much the lid tapped the rim. I kept one hand under the cup until the shaking settled. He took a sip and let out a shaky laugh that wasn't joy, just relief at having something warm to hold. "I've been rehearsing something to tell you," he said after a while. "It was going to be very brave. It had a happy ending. I was going to walk through the airport doors and say, 'Guess what, Mom? I nailed an interview. I'm back on track. You see? I can do it. And you would be proud and I wouldn't have to feel like this.'" He stared at the steering wheel. But that wasn't the truth. The truth felt too ugly to carry around. I thought if I lied long enough, the lie might become the truth. I didn't rush him. Night has patience if you let it. I sat with my hand on the door handle, feeling the cold metal under my palm, and listened. "I got laid off in September," he said, voice flat now, as if reading a report. "Half the team. I pretended I was fine. I told everyone I needed a change. Then rent went up. Job applications went nowhere. The last 3 interviews, no call back. I took some gigs, delivery, warehouse day shifts. Nothing steady. Then Naomi left. She said she couldn't be the strong one forever. I don't blame her. I had some bad nights." He glanced at me and looked away again, ashamed of things he hadn't said yet. "No drinking in my house," I said quietly. "Not while we're building a new story." "I know," he said and nodded. "I haven't had anything in a week. I wanted to be sober when I saw you. I didn't want my breath to shame me." "You came to see me in your mind," I said. "That counts for something." He wiped his eyes with the back of his wrist, a boy's gesture still living in a man's body. "I told you I was boarding. I was sitting right here when I typed it, watching the late bus roll by." He bit his lip. "I'm sorry." "I know," I said again. "Because sometimes the only bridge you can offer is one strong word, said 2 times. We didn't hug then either. Some hugs are a ceremony you have to earn with the next 10 minutes. I reached into the bag and took out the red scarf. "This is yours," I said. "It was for the airport. It works here too." He blinked at it like it might disappear. I wrapped it around his neck and pulled the ends through the loop gently, the way I had done 1,000 winters ago, when his cheeks were round and his teeth were too big for his smile. "It's warm," he whispered. "It's love pretending to be wool." I said, "Come home." He didn't say yes with words. He said yes by opening the back door and grabbing his bag, by taking one last look around the car as if to thank it for carrying him through the worst month of his life, and by following me to mine. The drive home was quiet in the best way. The roads were empty, the kind that let your thoughts spread out. The radio played old songs low, the kind my husband used to hum while untangling the lights. Ethan stared out the window, the scarf tucked up to his mouth, his eyes reflecting the street lamps as we passed. Once he said, "You still drive like..." A cop slows down behind you, and I laughed, a real sound. The first one all night. At home, he stood in the doorway, like he wasn't sure he was allowed all the way in. "Shoes," I said, pointing at the mat. You're not famous. You still take off your shoes. He did. He looked at the tree, at the blue mug waiting next to the coffee maker, at the folded blanket on the couch I put there out of habit. He put his hand on the back of a chair and breathed in deeply. I lied to you, he said again, needing me to hear it as many times as he had told it to himself. Yes, I said. You did. I didn't add. And I've lied too out loud. But I felt it, the lie mothers tell when we say it's fine. We don't mind. We're not lonely. We don't worry at 3 a.m. We don't replay conversations at the sink. I handed him a towel and pointed him to the shower. Hot water heals more than most medicines, I said. Go steam yourself back into a person. While he showered, I made 2 grilled cheese sandwiches and cut them into triangles like he used to like. I set the table and pulled the spare blanket out of the linen closet for the guest room and tucked it in tight. In the mirror in the hall, I told my face to soften. When he came back, hair damp, face pink, he looked like a man who had put himself back together with warm water and soap and the smell of home. He sat at the table, saw the sandwiches, and almost cried again. Mom, he said, just that, like. The word held thank you and help and sorry all at once. We ate. He told me the rest, in small pieces, the way you tell bad news to a friend you want to keep. I listened without fixing, because fixing is a job for hands and time and lists, not for midnight words. Then I set the rules. Not with a lecture, with love that wants to live long. Here are the 4, I said, and put up a finger for each. 1, no lies. Not the big ones, not the little ones. If you make a mistake, tell me fast. We can work with truth. 2, no. Drinking while you're under my roof. Not a drop. If that happens, you sleep somewhere else that night. 3, you look for work every weekday. Doesn't matter how small, how temporary. Motion is medicine. 4, we talk to someone who knows how to help brains in a storm. A counselor. You don't have to like it. You just have to go. He nodded so fast the scarf fringe shook. Yes. Yes to all of it. Good, I said. 5, you don't make up extra rules in your head about being a burden or earning every breath. You're my son. Your ticket in is your name. He let out a sound that might have been a laugh and a sob braided together. Okay. He slept in the guest room that night. I stood in the doorway after he fell asleep and looked at him the way mothers do, when we need proof our children are still breathing. His face looked younger when he slept. The line between his brows smoothed out. He had pulled the blanket up to his chin. A child's move that made something ache under my ribs. I whispered, Merry Christmas, even though it wasn't that. Kind of morning yet, and I went to bed. I didn't sleep much. My head replayed the airport, the lot, the first look on his face behind the fogged glass. I realized how easily this could have gone a different way. How many mothers never get the text, never locate the car, never hear the word, Mom, at the right window. I lay there under the slope of the ceiling and prayed clumsily in my own language. Thank you and help us, and don't let me make this about me. Morning came like it always does, even when it feels like it shouldn't. I made pancakes, real ones, not the kind with yogurt and substitutions. He ate in silence at first, and then faster, as if each bite reminded his body it belonged somewhere. After breakfast, we opened one present. The scarf, which he had already received in a parking lot at 4 in the morning. He touched it again, as if to confirm it hadn't been a dream, and said, It's the best thing I didn't deserve. Don't say that, I said. Deserving is a word I don't use often in this house. Love is not a paycheck. It's a blanket. You can pull it over yourself when you're cold. He looked at me like I had just handed him a sentence he could carry around in his coat pocket. He made a plan. I pulled out a yellow pad and wrote 2 columns. On the left, today. On the right, next. Today's list was simple. Call the bank about his car. Call the insurance about his health coverage. Text Ben to say thank you. Find a counselor who worked on a sliding scale and actually answered phones during holidays. Check the job board for anything with a start date before New Year's. Put 2 clear plastic bags of donations in the trunk, things he didn't need to carry into another month. Old papers that only hurt to read. A box of cables for devices he no longer owned. We worked down the list. The bank surprised us with kindness. 1 month deferred, fees waived. Because it's Christmas and you sounded honest, the woman said. And I could have kissed the phone. A community clinic had 1 therapist with space next Tuesday for folks in transition, the receptionist said, which is the nicest way I've ever heard of naming a storm. Ben sent back 3 thumbs up emojis and then, 20 minutes later, showed up at our door with 2 blankets, a bag of oranges, and a look of relief so deep it made me want to feed him too. Don't be mad at me for telling her, he said to Ethan. I felt like I was holding a door shut from the inside. I'm not mad, Ethan said. You saved me, again. They hugged, awkward and perfect. We sat at the table that afternoon and worked on his resume. He hated every minute. I could see it. Pride is a tricky animal. It wants to protect you and bite you at the same time. Say coordinated, I said, tapping the keys. You did. You coordinated a whole warehouse for 3 weeks when the manager's kid had surgery. That was just making schedules on a whiteboard, he said. That is what coordinated means, I said. Let the words carry their weight. When he got tired and sharp around the edges, we stopped. Pushing a tired brain is like pushing a sore knee. You end up limping the next day. At dusk, we took a walk. The air was clear, and the street smelled like chimney smoke and sugar. He told me a story about a man at the warehouse who sang opera while moving boxes. And I told him about the year his father tried to roast a turkey on the grill and set fire to the rosemary bush. We laughed the kind of laugh that heals tiny tears you don't even know you have. That night, he tried to pay me. He put 2 20s on the counter next to the cookie tin. For groceries, he said, eyes down. Put it in the jar by the back door, I said. That's the house jar. Trimming the garden goes in there. Fixing a hinge goes in there. Your first envelope can go there when you have an envelope. We don't do shame payments in this kitchen. He grinned at shame payments and tucked the money in the jar with exaggerated ceremony, like a priest placing bread on an altar. I will mow a lawn to match it, he said. Even in winter, the next days were not magic. We didn't wake up in a movie. Real life is heavier and kinder than that. There were moments when he stared at the wall with his jaw clenched, and I had to let that be. There were mornings when he couldn't stay off the job boards because hope and fear looked the same on a screen. There was one afternoon when he disappeared for 3 hours without a word and came back with eyes still red. Where did you go? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I sat by the river, he said. I wanted to drink. I wanted to not want to drink. I did both for a while. Did you? I asked, plain. He shook his head. No. I called the number the counselor gave me and talked to a stranger. A kind stranger. Then I walked back. I nodded and put my hand on the table, palm open. He put his hand in mine without asking permission. We sat there, our hands like a small bridge. We had one fight. It was about something small, which is how the big ones usually begin. He forgot to answer a text about the car insurance appointment. I reminded him. He snapped, "I'm not a child, Mom," in the way that makes a mother's back go straight. Said, "Then don't make me be your alarm clock." in the way that makes a sun's shoulders rise. We both went quiet. He took a breath, slow. "I'm sorry," he said. "Fear makes me rude." "I accept," I said. "Fear makes me bossy." We smiled a little, the storm already passing. This is how love survives, two people telling the truth before the plates start to shake. New Year's Eve came with a grey sky and a phone call. A distribution company needed someone to cover a 2-week sick leave, possibly more. Start January 2nd. Pay not great but real. Start times early. Work steady. He put the phone down and looked at me like the miracle had been shaped at our table. "Take it," I said. "Start somewhere. Use your legs to get to the next place." "I will," he said. His voice had a new tone in it, tired still, but aimed. The night before he started, we pulled his old work boots from the back of the closet. The laces were stiff. He sat on the step and re-threaded them slowly. A man getting ready for a hard thing he had been built to do all along. I steamed his scarf and stuck a note in his pocket. "Call me at lunch, even if it's only for 30 seconds. He rolled his eyes in a loving way and said, "Yes, ma'am," which is something he only says when he remembers he is my boy. He came home the first day smelling like cardboard and effort. He ate 2 bowls of chili and fell asleep, with his mouth open on the couch like he used to after soccer practice. I tucked a blanket around his legs and turned off the lamp and stood in the doorway longer than needed, storing the picture away for the bad days when I would need it. We kept our rules. He kept his counseling appointments. He placed $10 in the house jar every Friday because he asked to. And I let him because dignity needs small shelves to stand on. He called the friend who owed him money and said, "Keep it." Because sometimes letting go is lighter than grabbing back. He boxed up the things from his car that meant trying to be someone else, and took them to the thrift store with a thank you to the cashier for working on a cold day. He texted Naomi to say, "I'm okay," and not "I miss you," which was its own kind of courage. One afternoon, a week into his job, I found him sitting at the kitchen table staring at the chipped blue mug. The chip looked like a moon. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "I'm thinking I tried to write a story where I was the hero with clean hands," he said. "But the story I'm in has dirt and help in it. I don't like it as much. It's better though." "It's truth," I said. "Truth. Ages well." A few weeks later, he got a call from the same company. They liked him. They wanted to keep him part-time for now, maybe full later. He said yes. He came home and made dinner, his victory gift to me, and burned the first batch of onions so badly we had to open every window and laugh until the smoke alarm gave up. He wrapped the scarf around my neck when I took the trash out and said, "It's love pretending to be wool," and I said, "Don't steal my lines," and he said, "They're ours." We went back to the airport once in January, not because he was flying out, because Ben's mother came home from visiting her sister and she hates ride shares. We stood under the big board again. The tree was gone. The lights were packed away. The choir had returned to whatever rooms choirs return to. The hall looked like its real self, clean, bright, a little echoing. People still rushed to each other. That never goes out of season. When the sliding doors opened and Ben's mom came through, I felt the old ache in my chest soften into something I could carry without gasping. Ethan looked at me and said, "Thank you for coming to find me." "I would have waited all night," I said, "but I'm glad I didn't have to." He slipped his hand into my elbow like a gentleman from a different century and led me toward the exit. People ask sometimes how my Christmas was. I tell them the short version first. Different, I say, and let them decide if they want more. The brave ones ask, and I tell them. I tell them about the airport and the tin and the night lot and the red scarf. I tell them about the rules and the jar. By the back door and the first day of work that smelled like cardboard. Some cry. Some squeeze my hand. Some say, "My son" or "my daughter," and then a story falls out of their mouth that they didn't know they were carrying. Here is the truest part. The part I keep for last because it sounds simple and it isn't. I waited for my son. At the airport on Christmas. He didn't walk through those doors, but I found him where he had fallen, and we came home the long way. The ending was nothing like I hoped. It was real. It was ours. It was enough.